Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you've been doing well. Today's video is going to be about my current Chanel collection. It's pretty small and curated. I don't have that many Chanel items. I certainly don't have as many as I do with Louis Vuitton, which I recently did a full collection video, and I will link to that in case you missed it. The last time I did a Chanel collection video was 3 years ago, and I've definitely sold and added a few things since then, so I thought now would be a good time to do a updated collection video. So the first thing I'm going to talk about is just a general selling update, and then I will go into what I currently have in my collection, and then after that I will go through the items that are on my Chanel wish list or things that I might want to add in the future. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. For my selling update, it's actually not Chanel related, although you guys do know that I am trying to sell a Chanel bag at the moment. So I think I mentioned this in my Louis Vuitton collection video, but I did go through everything I had from Louis Vuitton, and I think I did tell you guys in that video that there were some items that I had taken to Fashionphile for a quote, and I ended up not taking them on the offer. So the one thing I did want to mention now is that I did end up taking one of their offers, not for a Louis Vuitton or Chanel bag, but for my Gucci mini horsebit bag. And I recently did a in-depth video on this, so I will link to that in case you missed it. And I love that bag, you guys. It was so cute. I loved the design of that. I loved the color. There's just so many things I loved about that bag, but as I had it in my collection, I realized I wasn't reaching for it. And the reason why I wasn't reaching for it is just because it was just a little bit too small for me. And while I do have mini bags and I will use mini bags, I think I've learned that I really just can't buy any more mini bags because I'm not going to use the ones that are that small. And I think for all the mini bags I had, that Gucci mini horsebit was the smallest bag in my collection, to the point where it just really wasn't very practical for me. And yes, it can fit your essentials, and yes, it just looks so cute, but for my particular lifestyle, I felt more comfortable just carrying a few more things with me, and having to downsize that much, it felt a little bit cumbersome, which I think is the main reason why I ended up not really reaching for it. So with Fashionphile's quote, the quote that they offered me actually allowed me to be very close to breaking even. And the reason for that is because I ended up purchasing that bag in Japan before the most recent Gucci price increase. On top of that, at the time when I purchased the bag in Japan last October, the yen was incredibly weak against the dollar. So after the conversion and the tax-free, because in Japan, I think you get 10% off for a tax. When you added all those things up together, the bag ended up being a really good deal for me. And the Fashionphile quote was like very close to that. And so I had figured, while this bag is still really popular, while it's still kind of hot and people are kind of into it, I should just take advantage of this offer and go ahead and sell it, which is what I did. So yeah, I want to be transparent about these kinds of things. I want to tell you guys when I sell items and when I decide not to sell items, just because I think that it's helpful for other people to know. And I'm certainly not the kind of person that can just buy and not get rid of things. I do need to curate and downsize my collection every once in a while when it makes sense for me. In this case, that was a bag where it just made sense for me to let that go. And I don't think I'm going to regret it, but I do kind of wish that bag could work for me, if that makes sense. So I don't regret letting it go just because I know I wasn't reaching for it, but I just, when I bought it, I loved it so much, and I still really love the look of it on other people, and I think it's just such a great cute little bag. But I think I just really need to learn to stop buying mini bags for myself. And granted, there are times when mini bags are useful, but I think that was just a little too mini for my lifestyle. Okay, so moving on to the main portion of this video, which is going to be about my Chanel collection, I will go ahead and get started with the smaller items first. So I think I'll go ahead and start with the key holder, and I will link to this video in case you missed it, but I did purchase this in January from Neiman Marcus, and I ended up using a Neiman Marcus gift card, which is great because I didn't have to put any money down. And yeah, this is just such a great classic piece. I've been using it pretty much every day since I got it. It's definitely become one of my everyday SLGs. And it does have the back pocket right here, which I think is such a game changer. I love having this back pocket. It's great to throw in like an ID and maybe one credit card and grab these keys and run out the door. So in those kinds of instances when I need to run a quick errand, this is really handy. This is, like I said, in the black lambskin with light gold hardware. And I will say that I think there was a while where this piece was incredibly rare, incredibly hard to find in boutiques, but I don't really think that's the case anymore because I was shocked to have been able to find this in the store in January. And then a few weeks ago, I went into Chanel just to look at a few things, and I will mention that later, the things that I'm looking for. And while they didn't have the small leather good that I was looking for, they did have this in yellow caviar, and I was shocked to be able to see another one in the boutique brand new. And so I do think that these are becoming a little bit easier to find, maybe. I think that's just my anecdotal experience. Your mileage may vary, but I would say if this is an item that has been on your wish list, I would go ahead and keep an eye out for it, keep looking in the boutiques because you just don't know when it's going to pop up. So this item is, pretty new. There is a little bit of wear and tear on the inside, which I think is totally normal. Here it is. As you can see, the little scratches there from the key. So I would say if this would bother you, don't get this, and I would stick to the LV clay or one of the other canvas pieces. But because this inside part is leather, it is going to get scratched up. And so I expected that going into using and purchasing this item, so that doesn't really bother me. But I did want to point that out in case that is something that might bother you. And here is what it looks like on the inside. It does have my house keys and my mail key. And because I don't own a car or drive a car, because I live in the city, this is the part where you would put a car fob. So I ended up just putting a tile tracker there instead. So this is what my key holder looks like. Next, I have my Chanel card holder, and this is the 19S Iridescent Beige. And I have to say, I'm going to try to angle it to the sunlight, but this is an item, this iridescent beige in particular, does not come out on camera the way it does in real life. In real life, it is just this little shimmery gorgeousness. I can't even describe it. It's just like the perfect mix of beige, but it just is like that little bit extra. It's not boring at all. I don't know, there's just something about this iridescent that just makes my heart sing. And I purchased this from the boutique when the 19S collection came out, and this is still one of my favorite pieces. I absolutely love this. I also just think this classic card holder is a really, really great piece, and it's a really great card holder because it's so flat. You can see how thin it is, and it's the perfect card holder for when you need to downsize to a smaller wallet. And it can still fit a good amount. So it has a front pocket here, two slots in the back, and then a main compartment in the center, which is a little bit bigger, and it goes kind of all the way down there. So it can fit cash if you wanted to fold up cash in here, or more cards, totally up to you. But I would say this is a very, very useful piece to have. Next, I have this Chanel brooch, and I picked this up in Hawaii a few years ago. Oops, it's upside down. Okay, here we go. And this is in a light champagne gold hardware with those little crystals on the CCs, and I absolutely love this. I really like the fact that this is just a little bit smaller. I would say it's kind of more of a medium-sized brooch. The brooches I've seen in Chanel when I was looking for them, a lot of them are really, really big and kind of in your face a little bit, and I felt like this was just a little bit more smaller in size, which is why I gravitated more towards this one. And this is the only piece of costume jewelry I have from Chanel, and I'm happy with this. I don't foresee myself adding any more costume jewelry pieces from Chanel to my collection. So this is my one and only right here. Moving on to bags. So I will start with the newest bag, which I've recently done a Chanel's Buyer's Remorse video on. I'll link to that video if you missed it, but in that video I didn't actually show you guys the bag, I just showed you the unboxing. So give me a second while I undo everything and I will show you guys the bag that I have in person. So here is the bag. It is a mini square in this beautiful light pink color, and I think it's called Rose Claire because that was what was written on the customs form. But when I checked the receipt color code, it is actually light pink, so I'm not actually sure. It didn't come with the retail tags. Not all stores will give you the retail tags after you purchase the bag, but I think this color is absolutely gorgeous. It is just the perfect, perfect light pink. However, as you guys know from my last video, I just got immediate buyer's remorse. I think I just realized I'm never going to use this bag. It is so cute. I just don't think it's going to be for me. So I definitely have a little bit of buyer's remorse. I have been researching consignments and getting quotes from people, but unfortunately, because I still haven't received the VAT refund, which is also an annoying thing in itself because I've been home for about a month at this point, and it's really, really frustrating that I haven't received the VAT refund yet, especially because it would just be a really good chunk of change and it would really make purchasing this bag just a little bit easier. So that being said, all the quotes I've gotten from consigners, while they're very reasonable quotes and I understand their businesses, I would not be breaking even. And because this is a brand new bag, I just have a really hard time letting go of this at a loss at this point. If I had used this bag for a month or two and just kind of realized it really wasn't for me, I don't think I would feel as bad about letting it go at a bit of a loss. But because this bag is totally brand new and because I pretty much knew after I bought it, like within a day or two, that I wanted to sell it, is a little hard for me to justify not breaking even on it. I don't want to make a profit. I'm not interested in that. I just want to get what I paid for back. So I'm still exploring my options a little bit. I think that hopefully the VAT refund will come through in the next few weeks. And if it does, then I'm going to feel much better about going through one of the consigners, because even with their prices and their fee on top of it and the shipping fee, I think I'll come much closer to breaking even. Maybe not all the way, but I don't think it's going to hurt as much. So that's kind of what I'm waiting for at this point. So again, we'll see what happens, but did want to go ahead and show you guys this bag. And it is a stunning bag. I do think it's so, so gorgeous. I think this pink is just a really, really perfect shade of pink, but I just know myself and I just know that I'm never going to use it. So yeah, here it is. Next, we have what is probably one of my favorite bags, and this is the Vintage Diana in the small size. I got this in Japan last year, and I absolutely love this bag. It is a little bit worn. There are some scratches. There is a little bit of wear and tear on it, but I think for the age of this bag, I think it's in very, very good condition, especially for the price that I paid. I have certainly seen on Fashionphile vintage Dianas that are in way worse condition that are selling for much higher. So the fact that I paid, I think it was less than $3,000 for this, and for the condition that it's in, I think that was a really, really good deal, and I'm really happy with the price that I paid. It's such a classic. It's a perfect crossbody bag. It can be dressed up, it can be dressed down, and I think especially with the quality of Chanel Vintage, I think that's kind of where I want to put my focus on as I move forward in my bag collection. I just can't justify spending like 10 grand on a new Chanel bag, and I know a lot of people feel that way, so I think for me, I'm going to start focusing more on vintage. But this is the first Chanel vintage bag I bought last year, and I absolutely love it. Next, we have the reissue in the 227 size. I love this bag as well. This is with the aged calfskin and gold hardware, and I just love this bag. I think there's something about this size too that is kind of the perfect size. It's in between the medium classic flap and the jumbo, so it really fits that sweet spot for me. I also love these chains. I think they're so pretty and dainty and just kind of add that little special something to the overall look of this bag. It is Chanel, but only real Chanel bag lovers will know that, because it's kind of a if you know, you know type style. It's not one of the more popular styles. This is such a great bag. I can't say enough about it. I know the wrinkled aged calfskin look is not for everyone, but that's okay. It's definitely for me. And I especially just love that sometimes I want to wear a really nice handbag and just elevate my outfit a little bit, but I don't want a ton of logos, or I don't want something that's super recognizable. And so this bag just really hits that sweet spot for me. So speaking of the jumbo, I have my jumbo single flap here in black caviar with the silver hardware, and it's stuffed right now, but let me just show you guys really quickly so you can see this is the single flap. And I love this bag. So in doing my research when I was looking for the jumbo, I kind of realized that the double flap would probably be too heavy for me, and so that's why I wanted to go with the single flap instead. And I just think this is a really great everyday bag, especially when you want to carry a little bit more with you. I also think it transitions really well from day to night. Sure, it is a little bit big for like a going out bag, but I think if you just happen to be out all day and then you went for an early dinner somewhere that was a little bit nicer, this bag would fit right in, and it just elevates your look a little bit. I also have used this bag for travel because when I'm traveling, I just don't have the capacity to bring all my bags with me, and I need bags that can be a little bit more transitional, bags that can be multifunctional. And for that reason, I do think that this is also a really great travel bag because it can fit everything you need for the daytime, but if you're going out in the evening, you can also carry this too, and it looks totally appropriate. And finally, I have two medium classic flaps, so I'm going to start with this one. And this is the black medium classic flap with the gold hardware in caviar. And this is a bag that is about 10 years old. I purchased this for a special birthday 10 years ago, and I was a much different person back then. My collection was a lot different. I think this was the first bag that I really sacrificed and scrimped and saved for. And at the time too, I really didn't have very many designer bags. I will say that while this bag does have a lot of sentimental value to me, I am a little bit disappointed in the overall wear and tear. This isn't a bag that I have used a ton. Like it's certainly not a bag I use every single day, but I think I mentioned this in one of my other videos as well, but there's just some like weird white spots on the back, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's like a white spot right there, and I don't know if it's just this particular season, maybe that's happened with this bag, but I think in the front, yeah, right here. So there's a little white spot right there as well, and I'm trying to angle that, but I did try to buff it out, and so what ended up happening is the caviar kernels like softened up a little bit, and then I kind of realized, ooh, I like shouldn't do that anymore. But I did try to kind of like fix it myself, and I kind of realized this is going to be something that a professional can do. But at the same time, I kind of feel like these little white spots, while it isn't great, it's not a big enough deal for me to get a quote from leather surgeons and send it in. Like, you know, if the bag was very, very damaged, then of course I would think about really sprucing it up a little bit. But overall, I think it looks fine. It's just disappointing to spend that much on a bag that has little spots like that. So from far away, you can't really tell, but you know, I know it's there. And now that I'm a little bit older and I have just a little bit more experience with carrying designer handbags, I have sort of been thinking about maybe selling this and then getting a vintage lambskin classic flat, but I haven't really decided on that yet, and that's kind of just like a lot of work and research that I don't really want to do right now. I really need to focus on selling the mini square fur, so that's kind of higher on my priority list, but that is something I've sort of toyed with thinking about, so we'll see. I do really think the vintage lambskin are just so, so gorgeous, but at the time when I was buying this bag, I really didn't want to go with lambskin. I knew I wasn't confident enough to carry a lambskin bag and be okay if like something happened to it. So anyway, now that I'm a little bit older and wiser, I'm kind of like, oh, maybe I should trade this in and use the funds to get a vintage lambskin. So we'll see. And finally, we have the last bag in my collection, and this is the iridescent beige classic flat from the 19S season. It matches my card holder, so let me grab that real quick so you guys can see. I have a little matching set here, which I love. I think this might be the only matching set I have. I'm not usually one that will grab the smaller accessory to match the handbag because that would just be a lot, but I did for this, and I ended up getting this first, and then when this popped up, I just had to grab it because I realized how much I love this color. And I know from that season, everyone was dying over the iridescent pink, which, don't get me wrong, I think is such a gorgeous color, and yes, if I could add that to my collection, I absolutely would. But there's something about the beige that I just felt like is more me, if that makes sense. It's like this beautiful shimmery color, but it's also really great neutral, and I just felt like this for my lifestyle was a little bit more wearable. But I absolutely love this bag. This was the bag that I took with me to Europe for my last trip, and so this was really great because I could take it shopping, I could take it to dinner, and I got compliments on it. When I took this to the Chanel boutique in Nice, one of the sales associates was like, how did you get that bag? You know, that bag is so gorgeous. And so, and again, it's not, the shimmer is not coming up on camera at all, but in person it is so stunning. It's such a beautiful bag, and it makes me very, very happy. So moving on to the chatty portion of the video, I wanted to go ahead and talk about my wish list. I don't usually do wish list videos, but I thought because this was Chanel and there are definitely some Chanel items I do want to add, I figured this would be a good opportunity to talk about it. These are the things that I'm currently thinking about adding to my collection, or that maybe I'd like to add to my collection in the near future. If it's gonna happen, I don't know. We'll see what happens later this year. If for some reason I don't add any of these to my collection in the next year or two, like, I'm not gonna be upset by it. These are handbags at the end of the day, and I'm very happy with the collection that I have right now, and I certainly don't need to add anything more. I'm also having a hard time with the price increases, just like everyone else is. I know that this has been talked about to death, but the Chanel price increases are really hard to stomach, and I'm pretty confident that I'm not going to be buying a Chanel handbag from the boutique anymore. If I do buy a handbag, it is most likely going to be vintage, or it's going to be on the pre-loved market where I can get a reasonable deal for it. So I do have some trips coming up to Asia later this year, and buying pre-loved in Japan is amazing. So I think if I were able to find the Diana in a different color, just because having had this bag and using it, I just have realized how much I love it. If I could find a bag in a different color, which I know the other colors are really hard to find, and they're especially really hard to find in reasonable price and reasonable condition. So this is one where I feel like it's probably not going to happen, but if I did ever come across a small Chanel Diana in a different color that was, again, reasonably priced and in reasonably good condition, I would definitely pull the trigger on that. I think I would also like to add a bigger Chanel to my collection. I've been thinking a lot about the Duvel tote, but I just don't really know what size, and I haven't really had a chance to try on the different sizes yet, so I don't know if I would go with like the medium one or the small one, so we'll see. I do really like the idea of having like a larger tote style Chanel bag in my collection because I just think it would be very, very practical. And speaking of like the more bigger bags, I am shocked at myself for even saying this, but I think I really like the Chanel 22 bag. And at first, like many of you, I was kind of like, what is this bag? It's not attractive. It doesn't look good. But the more and more I've seen it, it's definitely just grown on me. And I do really like the casual vibe of that bag and the fact that it is kind of like a tote bag and you can throw a lot of things in there. The only thing I'm not sure of is the size. And the reason is because I've tried on the small in store and I was kind of like, the small is a little too small for me, but I feel like the medium is going to be too big. I personally think that something between the small and the medium would work best for my body frame, which they obviously don't have. Who knows? We'll see if I change my mind later. But yes, it is a bag that at first, when it first came out, I was like, oh, no thanks, not for me. And now I'm kind of like, I kind of do like this. The next bag that I would think about adding to my collection, which I know I just sold a mini bag, and I know what I just said about mini bags in general, but I really do think that the Chanel mini rectangle, specifically with the top handle, that is the bag that I could see myself wearing, just because I think the top handle just adds a little bit of practicality to it. Whereas the mini square, it is so cute, but I think the mini rectangle, at least for me, I feel like I could fit more items and it would just be more practical for my lifestyle. And then just having that little top handle to like grab the bag as you're going, I think would be more practical for me. So that is one thing I've been thinking about. The last Chanel bag I'd love to add to my collection is the Chanel Filigree in beige. I just love the look of that bag, and I think it is a very casual, understated bag, but it can still elevate an outfit. And I don't know, I just think it would be like a really beautiful everyday bag. So that's something I would love to add at some point. And the other two items from Chanel I'd like to add are actually items I would consider purchasing from the boutique if I ever found them. First is the classic snap button card holder with the back pocket. This actually has been on my wish list for years, and I've just never been able to find a color that I want. And it's been so frustrating because for at least the last 5 years, I will go into a Chanel, whether it's in the US or in a different country, and they never have what I'm looking for. And I think it's a very popular style. I also think too, SLGs are a little bit harder to come by because the price point is easier for most people to stomach. And so, you know, if you're dipping your toe into a luxury world for the first time, it does make more sense to start with small leather good. And so, you know, it's just hard. And I do see them. They do have them mostly in beige and black, but I really want something that's more of a pop of color. I would love to have like a light blue or a light pink, but obviously those are very, very popular, rare colors and hard to come by. So that's one reason why I haven't added it. And I think the last item that I would like to add are the Chanel Classic Slingback pumps. I go back and forth on these. One, I think that they're such a classic shoe. I think they're so beautiful. I think they're never going to go out of style, and they would look great with almost any outfit. But I am going back and forth because one, I really don't know how comfortable they are. I haven't tried them on in person yet, so I don't know if it's going to be worth it to spend that much money on a shoe if it's very, very uncomfortable. I don't think it's going to be that uncomfortable because it's a lower heel and it's more of a block heel, but again, you just never know. And two, I go back and forth on this because the toe portion is in that fabric, whereas the rest of the shoe, at least the beige one, is in goat skin. And I just feel like maybe the black part would look better if it was in leather and not that fabric material. So I'm not really sure. And again, too, they're pretty pricey for shoes. They're over $1,000 for a pair of shoes, and they're not going to be an everyday shoe for me. The Chanel Classic Slingbacks are definitely one that kind of go back and forth on my wish list. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I really want it, and sometimes I'm like, no, I don't think I should get them. But I do think that unless I win the lottery or something crazy happens, pretty much anything I buy from the boutiques at this point is going to be a small leather good or an accessory or a shoe or something like that. And for handbags, I'm pretty much going vintage or pre-loved only at this point. I just can't stomach spending that much on a brand new bag from Chanel, especially with the quality issues. And yeah, I don't think it makes sense for me personally. So that's about it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and would give it a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. And if you would also subscribe to my channel, that would really mean a lot to me. I hope you guys all have a wonderful day, and I will see you in my next video. Take care. Bye.